So thank you, everyone. Today we have Simon Sinek here with us on Everyday Power, New York Times best-selling author of Start With Why and Leaders Eat Last. And you've probably seen him for his TED Talk, how leaders inspire people to take action. Simon, when I was looking it up on YouTube, if you add up all the channels, because it's on various channels, it's around over 30 million views from your talk. 30 million views. Incredible.
That's a lot.
That is a lot. That is a lot.
Thanks for doing that.
And so why do you think, I think that's such an incredible thing. Why do you think your message has stuck with so many people?
Well, keep in mind that something like 60 million people have seen the videos of a chimp smelling its finger and falling off a tree. So,
Yes, very true.
Things in perspective.
Very true, very true, yes.
At the end of the day, the message is an honest one.
Yes.
It was born out of my own personal struggles. It's something I personally believe in. It was never a commercial or academic exercise. And I think the reason it sticks and the reason it spreads is because it's true, because it's personal, because it's honest. And if it resonates with me, it resonates with other people. And those are the people who tend to share it with their friends. It's amazing to me how many people who've seen my TED Talk were sent it by somebody else. They're not necessarily TED people.
Right. And I remember the first time I heard it, it was in 2011. And at that time, I was dean of students at a public school in Harlem. And it really made me reflect on how I'm communicating to students and how as a staff, as a collective, we're communicating to students and parents. And it's amazing how this idea of your why is incredibly overlooked. What do you think?
Well, it's overlooked not because it doesn't exist. It's overlooked because it exists in the part of the brain that doesn't control language.
Okay.
Our neocortex is responsible for rational, analytical thought and language. That's why we're always rationalizing or going through the pros and cons, or it's like, well, let's just talk this through, But it's our limbic brain that's responsible for all of our feelings, like trust and love and loyalty and friendship. It's also responsible for all human behavior, but it's not responsible for language.
Okay.
This is where gut decisions come from.
Right.
Like we know it to be true, we just can't verbalize it. Right. And so the why, the thing that inspires and drives us, exists in that limbic brain. And so when you're able to put it into words, then a lot of things make sense. It's like a filter. It's like you're given a lot of good advice all the time. The question is, which advice do you follow? The worst part is it's worked for other people. You see other people who are very successful or doing what you want to do, and they say, you have to do this. It worked for me. And you go, oh, it worked for them. I guess I'll do it. Right. Not necessarily, sometimes. Right. But if you know the filter, you can say yes, yes, no, no, yes, yes, no. It's very easy.
And I'm assuming that this filter, and it takes some experience of really knowing which advice to take, and as Bruce Lee said, which advice to leave at the wayside.
Well, usually it's luck. Usually it's like you're in the flow, but who knows how to turn it on,
Right.
But knowing your why, the ability to put your why into words makes those decisions very easy. So, for example, I'll give you a perfect example, right? My why is to inspire people to do what inspires them. Right. I imagine a world in which the vast majority of people wake up every single morning inspired to go to work, feel safe when they're there, and come home fulfilled at the end of the day. That's what the world I want to build. And so when we got a request from you to do this interview, and you told me how yours is more than, it's not just about self-improvement, it's about service to others, immediately I go, I would like to do this one, right? If you had come to me and say, ours is about helping companies be more profitable, I'd be like, I'll skip this one.
Right.
And it's not because of the size of your audience or because of, who you are or who somebody else is. It's because I like what you stand for. You stand for what I stand for. Our messages resonate with each other because I ran it through my filter of why, and here we are talking to each other.
Amazing. I have a question, because I'm sure that there's a lot of people out there who are asking, does our why have to be so massive? Does it have to be this vision of changing the world?
Right. Well, let's not confuse the vision and the why. The why is the thing that wakes you up in the morning and drives you, what inspires you, to inspire people to do what inspires them. Right. That's my why.
Right.
My vision is to create a world in which the vast majority of people, right? Now, your vision, not everybody needs a big Steve Jobsian vision. You know,
Right.
you want to put a dent in the universe. I mean, that's pretty big.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I know, you know, when you talk about leadership, you know, people ask me, what are the characteristics you need to be a great leader? You know, vision, charisma. I know some fantastic leaders who don't have tons of charisma.
Right.
You know, they're pretty low key, actually.
Right.
And I know tons of fantastic leaders who don't have big visions. Their visions might be to take care of the people around me, right? As long as you know your why, whether you apply it big or small, whether you apply it, you know, to change the world or just change your family or the group of people around you, it's all good. It's all valid. I mean, think about a fantastic mother, right? A fantastic mother doesn't necessarily have visions of changing their world. A fantastic mother has visions of creating young, confident, inspired, driven children who want to go off and live their potential and have good lives and take care of others, right? Now, that impact is a hell of a lot bigger, I would argue, than maybe somebody with some huge vision, you know?
Right.
So, no, visions don't have to be earth-shattering, universe-changing. Of course not. But they have to be in the service to others. All visions, big or small, are always in service to others.
And I think, first, that's an excellent distinction and a great point, because from my experience and perhaps yours, the reason why a lot of people might find change so difficult is because they see it as this momentous thing. And so when you're talking about starting where you are with what you have in regard to your family, being there to support, inspire, and encourage your family and your surrounding community
and friends.
and friends, right? Awesome. Because a lot of people, when they hear the talk or when they see people talking about being a leader, as if they think it's only for people who have who are the supervisor for 500 people.
Let's not mistake leadership and rank.
Right. Okay.
Rank affords you authority.
Correct.
Leadership is the choice to take care of the person to the left of you and the person to the right of you. I know many people who sit at the highest levels of companies who are not leaders.
Right. Yes.
They have authority.
Yes.
They have authority. And we do as they tell us because they have authority over us.
Right.
But we would not follow them.
Absolutely.
I know many people who have no authority.
Right.
Who have made a choice. The choice to look after the person to the left of them and the choice to look after the person to the right of them, and we would follow them anywhere.
Yes.
Leadership is a choice. It is a practice. And with rank and authority, you may be able to lead more people. You may be able to lead, with greater authority.
Right.
But the authority does not give you the leadership. No way.
Okay.
No way.
Amazing. We also speak to a lot of career changers, right? And then a lot of people, and I think I heard you speak about this in a prior interview about how you were doing some work, you were an entrepreneur, and it just didn't excite you anymore. And what happens, one, if someone doesn't know their why, and what happens if our why just doesn't excite us anymore?
Okay, so if you don't know your why, there's a process to go find it, right? I used to personally help people do it.
Right.
And my amazing team took the process that I used to use with people, and they made it into something that others can use.
Right.
Our website, if you go to startwithwhy.com, there's a thing on there called the Why Discovery Course, which is designed to help people find their why.
Excellent.
It's a process. It's a process.
Right.
You go through the process to find your why. So if you want to find it, go find it. You know? It's like, well, how do I find treasure? Go looking for it. I don't know.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Find
Explore.
Go explore, exactly. Go on the journey. But when you say, what if you get to the point where your why no longer excites you? That's impossible.
Okay.
Your why is the thing that inspires and excites you. What changes is what you're doing may no longer excite you.
Okay.
So you have to change what you're doing to bring your cause to life in a different way. So we absolutely can get bored with what we're doing, right? Or if it becomes disconnected from the why. So let's say you started loving it, and then it became about the money or the promotion, and all of a sudden you don't love it anymore.
Right.
Then you have to reconnect with your why. In other words, it's not the what or the why. It's about the connection.
Okay.
Right? You have to remember why you took the job in the first place. I get this with folks in the military. When they're junior, they're all excited and amazed, and sometimes as they get more senior, they forget why they enlisted in the first place.
Yes, yes.
They have to reconnect with that purpose, and all of a sudden, instantaneously, they love their jobs again.
So how
that happened to me? As soon as I reconnected with my why, what I was doing was fine. I just forgot the connection.
Okay, and so how did you reconnect? How did you plug back in to your why?
Right. So first you have to know it.
Yes.
Right.
Identify it.
Right. So once you know it, the question is, what are you doing to keep it front and center? So you're making decisions that you run it through that filter, which we talked about before. That's one way.
Right.
And then I surround myself with little reminders. Right. So on my computer, on my keyboard, it says to inspire. It reminds me. I always had something orange around me to remind me. I had pens made. I had orange pens made that say on them, you can't see it, but that say on them, inspire someone.
Yeah, excellent. Awesome.
When I write in orange, it's an inspiring color, and it reminds me. It doesn't say inspiring someone. It doesn't say my website or my phone number. It says if you want to find your why, please visit. It doesn't say that.
Right.
It says inspire someone.
Right.
We had these made that we use ourselves. They're good pens. Why would we give away pens that I would want to use?
Right.
But my point is, I've surrounded myself with little symbols, that remind me. Letters from people, photographs of things that I've done. I've got my desktop is Martin Luther King standing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, because it reminds me.
Right.
It reminds me that this is big and I got to preach.
Right.
You got to be surrounded by people and things that, like, why do you keep pictures of your family in your wallet? To remind you.
Right.
And you know what they look like. You know their names. You don't need pictures. Of course you do, because it reminds you. So you do the same thing with your purpose and your cause, and it has the same impact. It reminds you.
I heard you say, speaking of, to build on what you just said, and I heard in a prior interview you said, courage comes from relationships. And to what you just said, this idea of surrounding yourself with positive people who remind you of why you're doing what you're doing. And all change, growth, our why, that takes courage to even get started in that direction. So could you please speak a bit to courage comes from relationships?
People think courage is this deep internal thing, like internal fortitude, that when you need it, you dig down deep inside to find the courage, nonsense.
Right.
Absolute nonsense. Courage comes from the outside. Courage comes from somebody who says to you, I believe in you. Courage comes from when somebody says, you can do this. Courage comes from the person who took a risk on you, who put their reputation on the line to give you a break. And then when all the chips are down, you find the courage because you want to prove to them that their investment, their belief in you was worth it. Or if somebody believed in them and they do something bold, then their action inspires you to follow. Right? In other words, it's still external. So courage comes when we have somebody next to us who believes in us so deeply that even if we doubt ourselves, we still find the courage to do it because we don't want to let them down. We want to prove to them. We want to take care of them, whatever it is. You find this in the military where courage is a big deal. It's all about the person to the left and the person to the right. The most courageous want to take care of each other and don't want to let each other down.
And so what if we're having all amazing points? What if we're having, Simon, a difficult time finding these people to surround ourselves with? That
is hard, right? And as social animals, this is one of the struggles we have and one of the opportunities we have. How do you find love?
Right.
How do you make a friend?
Right.
Look, these are difficult things.
Right.
And some people have gifts and they're naturally more gregarious. I'm an introvert. Most people don't know that or realize that, but I would rather not. Like when I go to a big crowd of people, I usually tend to stand by myself in a corner, and I have this terrible body language like this, But at the end of the day, you try and go to places where you do fit in. And the internet has helped to some degree, but the internet aren't really deep, loving, close relationships. You have to be able to shake someone's hand. You have to be able to hug them. You have to look them in the eye and cry with them or laugh with them. You have to have had difficult conversations when they've wronged you and you wanted to put it right. Or you wronged them and they brought it up to you and you were able to have difficult conversations. You had to fight. That's when trust and real relationships are formed. It's a process. It's a process, and you have to invest in the process. You can find the person to love, but you have to invest in the relationship. Well, it's the same.
Right.
The more we invest in others, the more they'll be there for us, which will help us find the courage to do great things.
And to add to that, the more we're investing in others, we have to constantly invest and reinvest in
I'm going to
others.
write that down.
You should.
Keep going. Keep asking. Go ahead.
That was awesome. That was awesome. But right, we must constantly invest and reinvest in the same person. I once heard somebody say that yesterday's food won't fill me up today, and I can't live off of my last breath. And it's almost the same idea of reinvesting in these relationships to keep them healthy and strong and to keep the blood circulating within them.
It's amazing how often we take our relationships for granted, right? And then we lose them, and then we're like, oh my God, I love that person. I miss that person.
Right. Right.
It's my fault. Right. I think the willingness to take accountability in one's relationship. We're always quick to blame.
Yes.
Well, you shouldn't have done this and you shouldn't have done that. Yeah, maybe or maybe not. But you didn't have to react it that way. Or you could have brought it up, talked to them in a constructive way instead of yelling and screaming and calling them names. Sometimes we add fuel to the fire. So I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned is to take more accountability in my own relationships. I took a listening class, right?
Okay.
I took a listening class, and this is what I learned. Okay? I learned that I am a fantastic, fantastic listener with people I will never see again for the rest of my life.
Okay.
But with the people I loved and the people who were close to me, I was terrible. And so I really started to invest and pay the time to be a better listener with my friends. And I would announce it. I said, I took this class. I'm committed to being a better listener. My friends would say to me, you've been a lot better. And I would say, thank you. And my friends are there for me in even a deeper way than they before they saw potential in me. Now they actually see that potential coming to life, and it makes them feel good that they invested in the right person, because they were investing in me.
Right.
They were listening to me.
Right.
So I think taking accountability for our own relationships, they succeed because of two parties and they fail because of two parties,
And Simon, it's so interesting because you're listed or labeled as a leadership expert, but I think you have a side thing going on as a relationship coach. That might be in the future.
That's funny. First of all, I'm not an expert in anything.
Okay.
I'm a student. I'm a student of leadership. And I may be a more advanced student than some others, but I still have a lot to learn. Anybody who thinks they're an expert in anything means that they have nothing more to learn. And that's, of course, nonsense, especially when it comes to human endeavors like leadership or relationships. So I'm a student of relationships because I'm a student of leadership. That leadership is relationships.
Yes.
So I'm a student of human beings. I love the interaction of human beings. I'm not that interested in sort of how blood flows through the body.
Right.
I'm sure it's important. It's just not my thing.
Right.
I'll leave that to other people who are inspired by that. But I love human interaction. And that's what I'm a student of. And that's what I love learning about. That's what I love watching and studying. That's my thing. And if I find things that are interesting, I'll share them with people so that they don't have to spend all that time studying. They can just learn the lesson, right?
Right.
That's like why folks like me and you have careers.
Right.
It's because we did a lot of learning and we shared stuff, and they don't have to do all the learning. They can just take the lesson.
Right.
Whereas, and we hope that they do the same with their gifts and talents.
Yes.
Their curiosities and their passions. I don't have to go do tons of research on something. I like to learn things quickly as well, other things, That's how relationships and communities work. Right. Not everybody has to be an expert on everything because we're a community that trusts each other, so we can rely on each other, right?
Right.
Talk to Dave. He's really good at that. Susie, she's the best at that,
Right.
We can build on our strengths. Build on our strengths.
Right.
Don't worry, I always think it's funny in work. People are like, well, if you just work on your weaknesses, if you could just build up these weaknesses, we'll give you a promotion. What are you kidding?
Yeah.
Hire that person. If I suck at it, I can work my brains out. I'm going to suck a little less.
Yes. Yeah.
Why don't you invest in me to build on my strengths, and I will become a powerhouse in your company, and that's when you should promote me.
Right.
When I'm even better at the stuff that I'm good at.
Right. That is awesome. So I see, and I love this, Simon. I just got back from spending 2 years in India. I was teaching there. It was a ton of fun. I was in Chennai, southeast India. Wonderful place, amazing people, food, the weather, everything. Beautiful. And I see here that you were born in England, lived in
Mm-hmm.
South Africa, lived in Hong Kong, and now you're here in the US.
Mm-hmm.
And how has your traveling, how has that impacted your perspective on leadership, purpose, passion?
I think it's done two things. One is it's made me open-minded,
Mm,
especially because all those other places, except for America and England, I was the minority.
right, right,
Africa and Asia, I was the minority.
right.
And so I think it's a nice. I think there's something to be said for being in the majority and being in the minority. It changes your perspective.
Yes,
It's
yes.
comfortable to be in the majority, but I think opportunities for learning happen when you're in the minority.
Mm, mm.
So it's made me open-minded. I think it's made me more appreciative that there are other perspectives beyond my own. Right?
Freeze, I just have to pause you there, and I think that this is another tweetable when you said that the largest opportunities for learning are when
Yeah.
you are the minority.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Okay, I'm gonna write that down. I think that's true as well, and we might end up going back to that in a moment or two, if you don't mind.
I mean, the majority think they know everything, but they don't have the same kind of perspective, right?
Right.
So that's number one that travel gave me. The other thing, I think it made me curious. I'm a painfully curious person. I always want to know why things work or how does that happen. And I'm still that kid that keeps asking their parents why. Like that's me. I like picking apart an argument. I'm if there's a button and it says don't press, and I want to press it because I don't know what it does.
Right.
Yeah. There's a fine line between curiosity and mischief, I guess. But I think the travel that we had growing up as kids, and we would travel. Like when you're in Africa, you travel.
Right.
My dad grew up in Rhodesia, which is now Zimbabwe.
Okay.
And so we'd go visit my parents which was then Rhodesia. My grandparents. So it's made me curious because the world is strange and wonderful and different, and we would go exploring, and as a family we'd go travel, and I like being a tourist. Like I would rather go be a tourist and go explore than lie on a beach.
Okay. Why? Well, why is that?
It's more fun. Like I get bored on a beach.
Okay.
There's only so many things I can do.
Right.
Before I start getting antsy, I'd rather go wake up in the morning, go hit 1,000 museums, go roam through the streets, go have a bunch of different meals at a bunch of different restaurants, some that I planned and some that I stumbled upon. I want to go see a city. I want to go experience it like the locals.
Right.
I want to get lost. I want to take a drive. I've been big into these driving vacations lately.
Okay.
Go to a city, rent a car, and drive across the country.
Where was one of your most recent trips to in the car?
Drove across Italy. Started in Rome,
Okay.
and then rented a car and drove north. And drove up
Nice.
to Tuscany and Florence, and then up to the Dolomites, and then down to Bologna.
Even just from that little moment, what were some things that you learned during that trip?
That I can get fat in a week.
Yeah, okay. That's extremely valuable information. Very
I learned
valuable
that.
to know how fast
I mean, look,
to
this
act on.
part of it's the adventure. I went with a buddy of mine.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, we both broke up with our girlfriends and said, let's go on a guys trip. And we rented a car and drove across France.
Very nice.
And we had such a good time, we did it again.
Very nice.
And, one of the nights, I think, we got unbelievably lost, and it was unbelievably dark. And I think we had, I think I left my phone or something back at the restaurant. It was like an hour. And he wants to be mad at me, but he can't be mad at me because it is what it is. And it's just the adventure, I think, is part of it as well. Like going on an adventure with someone it's fun.
So a lot of themes I'm hearing, Simon, as we're speaking, right? This idea of adventure, and really this major idea of learning and non-stop learning and non-stop questioning just what's going on around you and why. Just why did this person do that? Why is this structured this way? And so are these some themes and ideas that anyone can start to implement in their own life?
Of course. When somebody says, I love this. Like people say, like, we only hire passionate people.
Right.
Nonsense. Like, we all have passion. We just may not have passion for what you have passion for,
Right.
And not to mention the fact that guy that you hired, how do you know that they're really passionate for interviewing, but not so passionate for working,
Right.
Like, that's nonsense. Everybody's passionate. You just have to find the environment in which your passion shines. Sometimes you can do it because you go looking for it, and sometimes you trip over it. And if you're smart enough to stand up and brush your knees up and say, I'm staying here.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So everybody's passionate. And it's not about a subject. It's not, well, I like knitting. I'm passionate for knitting. No, you're not. You're passionate for making things for other people, and you found that knitting is a way of doing that, you know? Or you're passionate for building things or creating things or following instructions. Like, do you like making Lego because you like following what it says, or do you like making Lego because you just do whatever you want to do?
Right, right.
I just bought $300 worth of Lego this past week because I just felt like doing Lego.
Right, right.
I had so much fun. And the first thing I was like, I was a little kid. I remember doing this as a kid too. I'd always make the thing out of the box once, and then I'd never make it again. You know?
Experiment.
I just like building stuff. So anyway, yes, the point is, these things are available to everyone, of course.
Right.
Of course. And you're more likely to find them if you go on the journey with someone. You know, all of these self-discovery things and find your passion and what's your this and what's your that, very hard to do by yourself.
Yes.
And they are much better, much more effective if you go on the journey with someone. And most importantly, the reason you go on the journey is not so that your friend will help you. You go on the journey so that you will help your friend, and accidentally you will find what you're looking for too.
So if these things are so accessible for everybody, you know, taking classes, being curious, why is it that so few people don't break their routine and they don't take the time to experiment, explore, discover? What do you think?
Well, you have to find the thing that kicks you in the ass, right? Okay. So I'm also super lazy. I mean, don't paint this picture of me that I'm sitting on my couch every evening, you know, reading books and doing research and, you know, looking up things on the internet. It's just not that way. I watch TV and I play video games, and
right.
I should really do some work, and I really should read that book, and I'm lazy, right? I'm lazy. But, you know, I really should go for a run, but I don't want to because lying in bed is so much nicer. You know, I'm lazy. Right. So, but the thing is, I found my thing that kicks me in the ass.
Okay.
And the thing that kicks me in the ass is when I find somebody who really likes doing something and I want to do it with them.
Okay.
So for me to go for a run is I call somebody who runs and I say, you want to go for a run? They go, sure. And then I'm out of my bed immediately because I don't want to let them down.
Right.
You know, if I find somebody who loves reading, I say, can I read with you? And we'll sit together and read a book. I love that. You know, if I need to do some research on something, I find somebody who's curious about the same topic as me, and we'll research it together. Or I'll help somebody else research something that they're working on. Like, as soon as I find somebody, and I work in pairs or small groups, but I found my thing.
Right.
So I know if I'm left to my own devices, I'll be fat and stupid, you know?
Right.
If I make sure that I keep people that I think are interesting, or they're interested in stuff that I'm interested in around me, I'm fantastic. Yeah, I'll make plans, and I'll do things, and I'll plan adventures. But that's my thing. I'm not saying that's for everybody's thing. That's my thing. You have to find the thing that drives you and kicks you in the butt and gets you to start. Because once you start, you're good to go, right?
Right. And another major theme that's been present this interview is, Simon, every time you're speaking about something you learned or a conclusion you came to, it's always in reference to another person and some kind of shared experience. And a major social aspect. And you touched upon it before about how we're social beings, of course. But a lot of people might think that some of these deeply personal conclusions come from alone time, right? Come from this idea of deep self-reflection. So I think it's a very interesting mix of how a lot of these conclusions came from social.
Sure, that's true too. I mean, remember, there's a paradox to being human.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And the paradox is we are at all times both individuals and members of groups. Every day, right? We're members of families, churches, schools, companies, right? But we're also individuals. And every single day, we're met with both big and small questions that force us to say, should I be selfish or should I be selfless?
Right, right.
Should I give up the thing that I need to do to help somebody else in the tribe? Or should I sacrifice what somebody else needs me for because I got my own thing to do? Right. You know? And this is why it's a paradox, because there's no right answer.
Right.
The answer is yes.
Right.
Right? This is one of the challenges with Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Right.
He says number 1 is food. Right? Number 3 is relationships. Right? Now, have you ever heard of somebody committing suicide because they were hungry?
Right.
No.
Right.
Commit suicide because we're lonely.
Right.
Which means relationships might be more important than food. It's not that he's wrong. It's that he's only considered us as individuals. He's not considering us as members of groups. And we're both. Of course we need food and security first as individuals.
Right.
But as members of groups, relationships are actually more important than even food. Right? This is the delicate balance. Of course I need me time too, but then I also have to balance it off with time with people I love. If you only have me time, you end up going crazy.
Right.
As social animals, we need to be around people.
Right.
That's why these loners are like crazy, like the Ted Kaczynskis of the world, right?
Right.
It's a balance. And this is why real relationships are more important than online relationships. Because online relationships aren't real relationships. They're virtual. They're virtual relationships. You know, you can't fall in love with somebody over email.
Right.
Can't do it, right? It's for people who don't try to find a group where they belong, and they compensate by doing it only online. It can be very destructive.
Okay.
You know, this is why you go to Alcoholics Anonymous, and you actually go to Alcoholics Anonymous. You don't just go to some online group. There's no online support group for Alcoholics Anonymous.
Right.
Because it doesn't work.
Right.
But human matters. And so, sure, me time matters too. It's balance. It's balance.
That is awesome. I love the example of the Alcoholics Anonymous, right? Because the information is out there. Anybody can Google anything. But
I can give you all 12 steps. Just give me 2 minutes. I'll find them for you.
Right. But that group dynamic, having that mentorship, irreplaceable element.
And you'll get a kick out of this. So Alcoholics Anonymous knows that you have to master all 12 steps to beat the disease, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you master 11 and not the 12th, you'll probably start drinking again. But if you master the 12th step, you'll probably beat the disease. Okay. What's the 12th step? The 12th step is to help another alcoholic.
Okay.
Service.
Yes.
Service.
That same connection. So there is no change. There is no personal change with it. There is no isolated personal change. It seems
we will not be able to sustain the improvements and challenges and changes that we want to make in our lives unless we commit to helping others do the same, right?
Right.
So a good mother, right? The second time we talk about mothers, right?
Yeah. Well,
good mother,
very important,
commits to see that their children grow up to learn the strengths that they have and not make the same mistakes that they have.
Right.
To seize opportunities that were not afforded to them.
Right.
Yeah. That's a good mother. A bad mother is somebody who wants to be better than their child, who doesn't want their children to shine too much because it takes away the spotlight from them, or who uses their children to compensate for their feelings of inadequacy, like putting them into pageants and things. Not saying all pageants are like that, but you know that they exist.
I get you. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Moms are out there, you know?
Yeah. Yes.
Or people who put unbelievable pressure on their kids to excel at school, even though they may be good at singing or dancing, but they want them to be good at math.
Right.
I know it's well intended, but it's not necessarily a good mom, you know? A good mom wants you to be the best version of yourself and celebrate your own strengths and and help you build your confidence, you know? And we know what that looks like.
Wow, Simon, I'm loving this. That is awesome.
You wanted to talk about minorities. Or being in the minority, I guess, is more accurate.
Either one is fine for the record. And two, I think that I've never heard it put that way. And
I've never had this conversation, so this will be a new one for me. We'll both be exploring together. Say we'll both be students together.
Excellent. Leading by example.
So thinking out loud, right?
Yes.
I mean, think about it. There's more comfort in being in the majority. That's why when someone is in the minority, they seek out a community that looks or sounds like them so that they're in the majority, right?
Exactly.
We like that.
Yes.
Or for some reason we abandon the majority because we want to fulfill something else that's a minority. You know, it doesn't have to be superficial. It can be an education thing. It can be a religion thing. It can be all kinds of things, right?
Right.
I think we default to superficial because it's easier to see.
Right.
But it can be anything. We want to be around people like us. So the thing for me, which is the fun part about being human, which is what level can we get to where we start to find commonality beyond what we look like and what our religious beliefs are, right? So you and I look different, right? But let's go but we've already gone one level lower. We said, but we both believe in service.
Correct.
That there's a higher order of living which is giving to others.
Right.
Right? Instantaneously, you and I are now in our own little majority of belief.
Right.
We want to create a community of people who believe what we believe, because we find comfort in people who believe what we believe, right? Because we're in our own little majority, even though our group may be the minority, right?
Okay, right.
We want to attract people who believe, and we don't care what color you are, what sexuality you are. We don't care what your religion is. We don't care about any. We don't care if you're rich. We don't care if you're poor. We don't care about any of that. The only thing we care about is, do you believe in giving of yourself in service to others so that they can grow and become better versions of themselves? You're in, right? And so the question is, this is the power of why. This is the power of belief, right? Which is, belief transcends all that other stuff, right? And the problem is when there's no sense of purpose or cause, we default to the other stuff. The reason our country is so fractured right now, the reason black versus white, red versus blue, Democrat versus Republican, North versus South, it's a freaking mess.
Right, yes.
Worse it's been in years. And the reason is because it seems that we have lost our sense of purpose as a nation. You know, it was clear when the Cold War was alive because the big red dog was on our back door, and so we had to believe in the founding principles of this country that all men are created equal, because that's what we were willing to give our lives for. We were willing to bear any burden and pay any price. But ever since that was taken away from us, money's become more important.
Right.
You know, like colors become more important.
Right.
Politics has become more important. Stuff that's really not important has become more important.
Right.
You know? And I think this is why we need leaders. We need purpose. We need cause in our nation. And you watch these presidential elections, none of them have it. Democrat, Republican, front runners, back runners, none of them. It's a pile of mess. And once again, we get to vote for the lesser of two evils. Lucky us. You know? We need people who offer us vision of the future. That's not about them and their election, but it's about us and our lives. And it doesn't come from a poll that they read. It came from their beliefs. And we believe what they believe, and we want to live in the world that they imagine. That will allow us to put all of this other nonsense aside. You know, that's why national tragedies are sort of like September 11th happens, all of a sudden everybody's friends.
Right.
You know, I live in New York.
Right.
I watched those Twin Towers fall down. I lived here on that day. Do you know how many racially motivated crimes there were in New York after September 11th?
I'm sure zero, yeah.
There were zero.
Yeah.
A guy who would have mugged me the day before was now holding the door open for me.
Right.
You know? Because we had all suffered together, and it became an incredibly human thing. Osama bin Laden got that wrong. He thought it would fracture the nation. It didn't. It brought us together because we had common threat that was bigger than our politics, bigger than our wealth, bigger than our color. It was threatening us as a nation. It was existential. And this is what purpose is. Purpose should be existential. The purpose you and I preach is existential.
Right.
And that's why we can see over all of those stuff, all those things. Nobody cares about that as soon as we align on our beliefs. The problem is who's preaching the beliefs.
Right.
Preaching those purpose and those causes. Show me the CEOs. Show me the politicians that stand for something bigger than themselves, that stand for something bigger than their companies. This is why we all love Pope Francis. Here's a pope who believes in the forgotten ones.
Yes.
And he is beloved. I'm not a Catholic. I love Pope Francis.
Right.
I will follow him anywhere.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's not about Catholicism and it's not about religion. It's about a human belief.
Yeah.
We should seek to be in the majority when it's based on shared purpose. But when we lack shared purpose, we will continue to seek to be in the majority, but it'll be based on politics, color, and religion. And look what the world looks like, fractured in politics, color, and religion.
Right.
Add wealth into that one if you want.
And so for all the people who are listening, who are loving what you're saying, who are agreeing that these are outstanding points, that as you said, our priorities have become so distorted when there's not a common enemy, and we just get back to...
They're bad. They become a focus when we lack belief.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Being around people who share your religion, or of course you want to go to church with people who share your religion, right?
Right.
As well you should.
Right.
You know, that makes sense. But there's bigger stuff than that. There's human.
So
the question is, what can we do?
Okay, there we go. See, we're on the same wavelength. Excellent. So
I think there are two options, and everybody has to try and do both.
Go ahead, share them.
One, if you have that purpose or cause and belief, you have the responsibility to preach it and preach it and preach it and preach it and preach it. Excellent. And if you haven't found the words yet, you have the responsibility to find somebody who has found the words, and your responsibility is to follow them and help them and share with their message with others.
Excellent.
We have to be leaders and we have to be followers. And the best leaders are the best followers, because the best leaders follow a cause bigger than themselves.
Right.
Have the words, preach them. If you don't have the words, find somebody who has the words and follow them. We have the responsibility to align ourselves and follow the leaders and be the leaders that preach purpose and cause on a level that is bigger than all of us.
Woo! Simon, that was awesome. That was awesome. And I think it was extremely practical, extremely real. And this idea of following a leader, finding a mentor is such an outstanding first step. Study the field that you're interested in. Find people who are already doing what you want to do, right? If you perhaps had a little bit more courage, you would do. Study those people. I think that's a phenomenal takeaway and very, very powerful. Very powerful. Because as you know, the ideas are extraordinary. The ideas are great. The execution is also what's needed. So it seems like from all the phenomenal stuff you're saying, a concrete step we can do is find 2 to 3 people who we admire, who stand for something. That even if we don't have the courage, we could say they got the courage. I'm going to follow them.
Read their books, listen to their sermons, attend their congregations, join their companies, work with them, work for them. Some of them are in the business world. It's not all religious. Study them, and put yourself on a path to take over for them when they're no longer here.
Excellent.
Because if they go, then we have to take up the slack, otherwise it dies. That's what happened after the end of the Cold War. No one took up the slack.
Right.
John F. Kennedy and Ronald Reagan, so you can pick your politics, I don't care.
Right.
Both in their inaugural addresses, both talked about world peace and peace on earth. Right? When was the last time you heard a politician talk about doing anything for world peace and bearing any burden and paying any price?
Right.
Both Ronald Reagan and John F. Kennedy.
Right.
But then the Cold War ended after Ronald Reagan. The Cold War ended after, in George Bush's presidency. And ain't no politician preaching world peace anymore.
Right.
Not in those words.
Not in those words. Not making it explicitly clear. An explicit priority.
All men are created equal. Our country was founded on an idea.
Right.
This is an experiment. America is an experiment. That a group of people with a common set of values and beliefs, that we believe all men and all women have the same basic rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that we all are entitled to those, and we are at our best when we pursue those, and we work together to provide those things for others who believe what we believe, regardless of their politics, regardless of their color, regardless of their wealth, regardless of their sexuality. Right. And America is at its best when we do that.
So if we're speaking about inspirational figures, public figures, leaders, maybe who are some people that really stand out to you? It could be maybe perhaps a few from the past and now a few present day.
Mine are the same as everybody else's.
Okay.
Fond of Martin Luther King.
Right.
Not a perfect guy, by the way. We don't talk about that stuff.
Right.
But he had a strong set of values and beliefs. We like that stuff.
Right. Right.
My point is you don't have to be perfect.
Yeah, and I think that's an extremely powerful point.
These guys are not perfect. They are far from it. Martin Luther King had philandering issues.
Yes. Yes. Right.
He liked the ladies. But it doesn't matter.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, it matters, but it doesn't matter. My point is we're all imperfect.
Right.
Just because we are imperfect doesn't disempower us from standing for something bigger than ourselves. That's my point.
Right.
We can be imperfect. Of course we want to strive to be better versions of ourselves. Of course we don't want to hurt those around us. Of course we shouldn't, defy the value of a strong monogamous relationship. Of course. But the strong set of values and beliefs can still thrive.
Yes.
Yeah. Can still thrive. I mean, I like the usual. I told you I like the Pope.
Right. Yeah.
I like Lady Gaga.
Okay. Explain, please. I think that's a great reference.
Take or leave her music. She's got a couple good songs, But she stands for positivity. She stands for inclusion. She stands for the misfits, her little monsters.
Right.
Those who've always been called weird or different. She gives them a place to where they can be the majority, which is in her community. Right. She's always positive. She's always affirming. She's always consistent. She's a leader.
Right.
She's great. And she commands a following of people who trust her and want to join her community. It's got all the makings of tribalism. It's wonderful.
Amazing.
I love it.
That's a great example. Great example.
It's folks like that.
Excellent. And I think that if we just take a step back to the Martin Luther King, this idea of not being perfect is so important because from my experience, I think I've noticed a lot of people will cancel themselves out from any kind of leadership position, from truly expressing themselves, expressing who they are, because they think they have to be perfect.
They think they need a degree, or they think they need a certain GPA, or they think they need to be really disciplined. I'm so freaking lazy.
That's hilarious.
It's like upsetting to me.
Right.
And yet I still have a purpose that I believe in, and when the conditions are right, I'm on fire.
Right.
Right. Now, I wish I was less lazy. I do. I want to be better at it. It's having a cause doesn't serve as an excuse not to work on yourself.
Right.
But that purpose or cause is what gives our lives meaning, because if we don't give our lives meaning, all we have are the imperfections.
Yes. Okay. If our lives do not have meaning, all we have is our imperfections.
I'll write that one down, sir.
Excellent. Please do. Please do. I'm recording this, so I'll just write that one down later, but I love that one. Without meaning, all we have is our imperfections.
To focus on.
And I guess maybe to kind of sum this whole thing up, or maybe just a final question, is following our passion in the first place, is that selfish? Is following
selfish?
Is following our passion. Following our passion selfish? And a little more specific, is following our passion like a hashtag, quote unquote, a first world problem? How do you feel about that? I was once speaking to a great friend of mine. He was teaching in Agogo, right? So he was outside of the capital city, Accra, in Ghana, and he was living in the village, and he would just tell me all the time, about how following our passion is a privilege because someone has to get the water.
You're 100% right. In America, I was just talking about this with a friend the other day, right? There are millions, hundreds of millions of people in this world today that have to, as you said, walk miles to get dirty water.
Right. Not even clean. Right. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. We flush our toilets with potable water.
Yes.
Right? Like, we have so much drinking water.
Right.
That it's cheaper for us to just flush it than put in two different pipes.
Right. Incredible.
Okay, that's why I don't care that our dogs drink the toilet water, because it's actually drinking water.
Right.
It's the same water that goes out of your tap.
It's mind-blowing. Right? It's mind-blowing if you think about it.
It's mind-blowing, right? Now, if we have that much abundance, it seems to me we should take responsibility, that we should be immensely grateful and then take advantage of the fact that we have the luxury to follow our passion, as you said. Because other people do not have the luxury to follow the passion. They have to go get the drinking water.
Right.
So it seems to me the greatest gratitude we can show for the abundance we have is to do things in pursuit of happiness and passion and service. Because not to really is taking it all for granted.
Right.
It's like if you're born poor versus you're born rich. It's like we can't hate the person who's born rich. But if they're born rich, they should say to themselves, my God, I am so lucky that I never have to want for anything and go to any college I want to. Money's not a factor. I don't need scholarships and I don't need financial aid. I'm going to devote myself to build a company that people want to work for. I'm going to devote myself to do something that matters in the world, because what an irresponsibility it would be not to. Right? We've all been born rich. If you live in the United States, we basically all, and I know there are poor people in America. I know that. So we don't need to light up the email here. The vast majority of people in the United States,
yes,
compared to the rest of the world,
right,
are born rich.
Right.
Even our working classes are still, as you know, working from India, miles ahead.
Right.
They still flush their drinking water.
Right.
The point is once we get past the struggle of making it work, we have the responsibility to pursue happiness, and we have the responsibility, more importantly, to help others find happiness.
Mm.
We have to, because we've been given a gift.
Right.
We've been given a gift.
Right. And it's so and
everything you do that people listen to your podcast is a luxury.
Right. Absolutely. And I think something that you said that was incredibly powerful, right? This idea of personal responsibility for even acknowledging that it is a gift. Acknowledging that all these bills we have for the house and whatnot, that's a gift.
If you were born smart, you'd be like, I'm so grateful. I'm going to go do something with that. If you were born good looking, you'd be like, oh my God, I'm so lucky. I'm going to go do something with that. Right. If you were born like a linebacker, you're going to be like, oh my God, I'm so lucky. I'm going to do something with that.
Right.
Well, guess what? We were born with all this.
Yeah.
Let's go do something with it.
Right. And something that I noticed from living in New York, going to India, coming back to New York, is the new set of eyes I have. It's like I'm seeing New York, America, in a totally new lens. And because it's so easy to get caught up. And as you spoke about before, in this culture where we worship wealth and money, to forget all that we do have. And it's and another aspect of travel that's so incredibly powerful is I understand now how other people come to this country and all they see is opportunity. They don't see that everything has this massive cost and debt, whereas most other people, they just see things. I could never do that. I could never afford that. All they're seeing is lack.
And that's why immigrants do well in America.
Yes.
And when we talk about immigration reform, the vast majority of immigrants are unbelievably productive and unbelievably fantastic citizens because all they see is opportunity.
That's
wherever they see. In fact, if they come from the worst places they come here, they're like, oh my God, it's amazing here.
Right.
I can't tell you, like, you've had it living in New York. You get in a cab, you talk to a guy from another country.
Right.
And you're like, how is it? He's like, oh my God, I have a great life here. I make a great living here.
Right.
You know? Like, he's so grateful. And he works so hard, and it's so inspiring, you know?
It is, and it's extraordinarily powerful, and it's just even recognizing all the abundance and beauty around us is something that we could do every day, something that we're in full control of.
Yep. Good times.
Yeah. Simon, thank you so much for your time, for your energy, for your insight, your information. Thank you very much.
Jeff, you're amazing. I wish you good luck on your cause, and thank you very, very much for giving me a space to share my message. I really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure. Thank you again. Thank you, Simon.
See you later.
See you later. Cheers.